Hello and a very warm welcome to the late-breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage and me, Ben Hocking, here for a Sunday episode here in the middle of January. But Sam, the F1 world has actually given us things to talk about today.
Yes, thank you. They've realised that January is actually hell on earth and we're all struggling through these wonderful cold days. So thank you for bringing us news to actually talk about, and we don't have to make stuff up to fill up with your time. It's an hour of goodness, many talking points, and all three of us have decided to turn up. Harry Eade's here and he's got a green door behind him.
I know. Big changes. Big January changes here.
Cream jumper, green door.
That's what they get on the bars.
UK25.
Get out his LinkedIn profile.
It's been really cold lately, hasn't it, lads? It's been quite chilly
yesterday.
It's disgusting. Disgusting. Yeah. We don't do that here. We do 13 degrees, grey, raining. And that's us.
With a low of 11 and a high of 17.
I had a weird phenomenon of travelling from London back to Cornwall yesterday. And when I left London, I think it was -4. And when I got back here, it was like 8 degrees.
Come on now.
Sure. 12 degree shift.
Every season in the Southwest.
250-mile journey, we've had a 12-degree shift.
Yeah. That's Britain for you, baby.
Grow up, Britain.
No wonder we all moan about everything.
Speaking of, that's 45 minutes in. Right, we've got comments. Speaking of moaning about everything, we've got comments from Mohammed Ben Sulayem coming up later on.
Oh, God.
Harry, you wanted it on the schedule, my man. You can't complain.
Yeah, I'm not looking about it being there. I'm just him. Anyway.
Well, behind the curtain, we have a special group chat, of course, and Harry's immediate response was, we must talk about this on the Sunday episode.
We must talk about it because we'll get onto it.
Yes. A reshuffle of some of the senior members at Aston Martin. The Belgian Grand Prix has signed a contract extension to stay on the calendar, but with it rotating in a few years' time. But we're going to start with the news of Franco Colapinto joining Alpine as a test and reserve driver after the team reached an agreement with Williams, his former team. Flavio Briatore, the executive advisor of Alpine, said the following. Clearly, Franco is among the best young talents in motorsport right now. It's fair to say his appearance on the Formula One grid last year caught many, me included, by surprise, and his performances have been very impressive for a rookie driver. We have an eye on our future, and his signing means we have a great pool of young drivers to call upon and work with in developing the team for future success. Sam, we'll start with what your immediate reaction to this news was. And do you anticipate seeing Franco Colapinto in a seat this season?
You know, the 7 stages of grief, where you lose someone and you go through, all these emotions.
I don't. I'm in denial.
Very good. Yeah, that's kind of good. That's what I went through when this news came out. I went through humour first. I thought, good joke, everyone. That's not actually happened. And then I went through sadness for Jack Doohan when I realised that he's already essentially on the back burner of his Formula One career. And then the news came out about his testing alongside Pierre Gasly and how he was a second a lap slower than Pierre Gasly through those test laps that they put together, which, that's a big gap, for any rookie. We've seen how well they perform. And then I went through anger at just how he's been treated, how these rookie drivers at Alpine seem to they get no respect, Rookie drivers at Alpine, they get no love, they get no promotion. You see them constantly move to other teams or other areas in motorsport. And it looks like it's going to happen again. Alpine have got such a churning wheel of drivers coming through their academy. You remember that the most recent one they had, of course, Oscar Piastri. Immediately, he never got to drive for Alpine because he was quickly off to what is now the Constructors' Champions. Before that, I think Zhou Guanyu was a major contender, never involved in that team as well. And there's a long list of these rookie drivers, these youth drivers that have come through an academy that never ever appear. So they finally get round to the point where they've actually promoted one. They've actually invested in someone, giving him plenty of time. He's had a good junior career. He's had great testing. He's had practice sessions. He's going to get a season. And he's not even gotten in the car yet. And you've decided that based purely on Riz, personality, and good looks alone, Franco Colapinto is going to be there bearing down upon him for at least a whole year. I don't know if we'll see him in the car this year, but I think it's almost guaranteed, almost nailed on that at the start of 2026, that lineup will be Pierre Gasly and Franco Colapinto at an absolute minimum. I don't think Doohan, no matter what he does, is going to be keeping that seat for more than 24 Grand Prix.
Harry, what was your reaction to this news, and do you anticipate seeing Colapinto in a seat this year?
I mean, it's quite clear Colapinto's rizzed them up. He's rizzed a Briatore.
Briatore, yeah.
Briatore.
Terrible.
That's awful. The wording around this, I'm not buying into any rumors about Jack Doohan's going to be out the seat immediately. He's only signed for a quarter of a season. All that stuff. I don't believe it. But the wording that Alpine used for the announcement of Colapinto as a reserve driver, saying that he joins them on a multi-year deal. No one ever says that for a reserve driver role. When do they say, they're a reserve driver, they're going to be here for however many years? A lot of reserve drivers just sort of sign 1 year at a time because they don't really want to be a reserve driver for 3 years or 4 years or whatever, because that would be stupid. Sorry, Esteban Gutierrez. But yeah, so that alone, I think, was quite interesting to read. It's clear they have plans for Colapinto. For Alpine, it's not the worst. This isn't the worst idea in the world, because if Doohan doesn't work out to be good, they've got a known quantity here in Colapinto that can replace him should they need to. Tell you what would have been a really good idea.
What's that, mate?
Oh, I can't think what this might be.
They actually had a really good driver. He's called Esteban. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Gutierrez, you spoke about him?
Yeah, not him. He's called Esteban Ocon. He's actually got a race win under his belt and a few podiums for Alpine / Renault.
I've not heard of him.
No, well, they got rid of him, but that might have been a good idea to keep him. And they wouldn't be in this position. But yeah, so it's not the worst idea to have Colapinto on the back burner here. But they've painted themselves into a corner they didn't need to paint themselves into.
That is Alpine defined, man.
We didn't need to do this to ourselves, but we have.
They're just like in a corner and there's no one else in the room. No, you don't
Stay away!
You don't need to be here.
So unlucky, man.
Yeah, I'm so unlucky. I can't believe this happened to me.
I've lost again. No one else is in the race.
Because they didn't need to have Doohan in the car in the first place. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt that they're not just signing Colapinto because they're already worried about Doohan or they want Colapinto more. I'll say that it's a sensible choice to have Colapinto as a reserve driver. He is a known quantity now. He's got the speed. He's a little bit crash heavy, but he's certainly got the speed to back up that slightly wild streak. But yeah, it's not the worst idea. To have him as backup. So I don't blame them for this. I just really, really hope they give Doohan the time and the resource he needs to prove himself, because they can't base anything off. I know there's this test that apparently he did in Qatar with Gasly. There's obviously the last race of the season, which that alone is not anything they can base it off, because that's just not fair. So I hope they give Doohan enough time to prove himself. Because he's been a loyal, loyal driver for them in their young driver program, and he deserves to have this chance in F1. So I hope they aren't going to be Alpine about it, but I fear they've got the paintbrush out again.
You fear that Alpine might do something that Alpine would normally do.
Yes.
Fair.
Ironically,
fair worry.
The only thing they paint is themselves into a corner because their car ain't getting any.
Well, that's the ironic thing, isn't it? They are the most anti-paint people you can get based on their livery from 2024. I mean, my immediate reaction to this was not a great deal of surprise, just based on their interest in Colapinto seemingly going back to last autumn. So it's not like this came out of the blue. As with most F1 news stories nowadays, you get an inkling they're going to happen weeks, sometimes even months before they actually do. So no real surprise. What I sort of mainly took away from this was, if you were to line up all of the big Alpine news from, say, the last 3 years, after I was finished laughing my head off, I would then look at them all and say, this is the first Briatore move. Like Flavio Briatore has said since he's come back, like, for example, the decision to not use their own power units, he has been quick to say, that wasn't my decision. I don't know if I'd have done the same thing, but that wasn't on me. Direct your hate elsewhere. This feels like the first decision that smells of Briatore. Like, it's clinical, and regardless of whether you like him or dislike him or love his methods or hate his methods, this is Briatore all over. He is clinical. He is not afraid to upset the apple cart. And in this instance, the apple cart is Jack Doohan. I understand it. There's a lot of speculation about what Doohan's contract actually is, but there's also a lot of what I think is fair comment of, does it even matter? We've just had a situation where Sergio Perez, with all of the sponsorship deals he brings in and having 2 years of a contract remaining, Red Bull didn't want him anymore. Red Bull found a way to get out of it. Whether he's got a contract for 6 races, 8 races, 24 races, if at any point they want Colapinto in that car, they'll get it done. So I think Alpine, like they're trying to create a win-win situation for themselves. Whether they have or not is up for discussion. But what they've attempted to do is say, if Doohan's great, fantastic, you've got a good driver, and then suddenly you've got Doohan as a good driver, Gasly as a good driver, and a backup in Colapinto. Colapinto will be bringing quite a lot of money with him as well, even as a reserve driver. So that's a great situation. And then their hope is that if Doohan isn't what they want him to be, Colapinto is a rare mixture of experienced. I don't want to say he's experienced, but he has experience and he's got potential. There aren't many drivers that are free agents that have both of those things. So Alpine are trying to bolster their ranks in that regards. And to an extent, you can't really blame them for doing so. Is this an opportunity, Sam, for Jack Doohan to show what he can do? Obviously, there's a lot of pressure on him now, more pressure than would maybe be on the average rookie driver. If he can come out of this looking good, does that do more for his future prospects than if he didn't have someone like Colapinto directly behind him?
It's probably raised the stakes, isn't it? He was a rookie that came into a situation. I think before this move was signed, we even said on the show that he can take his time. He's got a good half a season under his belt where he's allowed to kind of put the work in, get used to the car. Is he going to get closer to Gasly? You know, that's what we're expecting for a lot of rookies these days, is give them a few races and they'll start to get up to speed. Well, that time frame for Jack Doohan is massively condensed. He no longer gets a full season to get his kind of feet under the desk, his foot in the door, whatever expression you want to use. And he's actually got to start turning the laps in within the first couple of Grand Prix, realistically. Tough for him, because if he gets it wrong, he's got someone waiting there to step straight into his seat immediately that's already done the job, has stepped into a more high-pressure situation, and has performed, has delivered, and has won the hearts of many fans in Formula One. But equally, as you've just suggested there, Ben, if he does perform, if he's right next to Gasly, if it turns out he's beating Pierre Gasly, who is a very well-respected Formula One driver at this point, he's outdone himself massively, and he's raised his value, and he's raised what he brings to Alpine, or maybe another constructor that might be looking for a driver who maybe Alpine, they might go, we don't have faith in you regardless, but you were beating Gasly, so therefore we'll take Doohan off your hands. He just gives himself far more opportunities if he ends up actually delivering immediately, because he's beating out the odds far more. He's not sitting there, you know, swimming around in a luxury pool, knowing that one day you might have to swim a couple of lengths. Get in the pool, do your bloody lengths, mate, win some races. It's a bizarre analogy. You get the point. You're right, Ben. The point is that Colapinto being there, I think actually could turn into a massive positive for Jack Doohan should he deliver much earlier than expected. Equally, there's a much larger chance he can actually end up stumbling, unfortunately.
Harry, can Doohan use this as an opportunity to, I don't know, in terms of his mentality going into the season, see what's happening around him and almost set out to prove absolutely everyone wrong?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he like you said, like Sam says, this is you know, the fall can be harder here, but also the reward can be bigger for Doohan, because if he does prove himself, then it certainly proves any doubters wrong, if their doubters are Briatore or Alpine themselves. Because, yeah, at the moment, again, it seems bizarre to say that, and this is all purely rumors, but they're like doubts around his pace, which seem really unfair because, as we've already said, he's only had one race and a test.
And would you not say as well, based on that, the amount of like free practice sessions he's done for them, the amount of test data, they must have simulated data. Surely that is way more to go on than just one test, one race.
And they signed him, so
yes,
he must be okay. They can't now be having doubts about him based on that one race. So I do find that quite unfair. But yeah, look, he can use this as an opportunity. You know, he can go into the season. He's got obviously the testing period. He can go into the season with that mentality. The first race is his home race, which I know is added pressure, but also, you know, it's quite a good place to start his F1 career. Let's ignore Abu Dhabi; that doesn't count. And it can prove the doubters wrong. If it is, you know, if the rumors are actually founded and they are true, then obviously that's going to be tough for him to take. But I don't really believe that. I think this is a good opportunity for Doohan to stick two fingers up to the haters out there.
Tick my two fingers up.
Tick my two fingers. And show him what he's made of. Because as you say, Ben, there must be enough. They must have seen something in Doohan, and he's proved himself in lower ranks to give him this shot in the first place over Esteban Ocon.
Wait, they had an opportunity to keep. Oh, that's bewildering.
How long do you think we'll keep that joke going for?
Forever.
Good. Like all of our jokes.
In 2060, when no one even remembers who Esteban Ocon is.
Oh, but I remember who we are in 2060.
We'll still be going.
We'll still be trying to get 10K on YouTube before Silverstone.
We'll have actually gone down.
Eventually.
You're 3K.
We'll have so many jokes that have never died that an episode will just be a continual flow from one old joke to another until we get to the goodbye moment.
We'll be asking about your Asda pizza, Sam, but Asda would have gone through like 6 rebrands in that time. People won't know what Asda is.
Gosh, I really want one of them now.
Sorry, yeah, my bad. I come out of this thinking, poor Jack Doohan, because if you go through the timeline of what's happened, it's pretty brutal in that he's promoted from reserve driver to be main driver for the team. And at that point, Alpine signed Paul Aaron to be the reserve driver. He was in F2 last season, had a pretty good F2 career, but, you know, fine. Alpine need a reserve driver if they're going to promote Doohan, so there's not a great deal of risk there. And then the Colapinto speculation starts to ramp up quite a lot. It's like, well, we don't need a reserve driver anymore. We've just picked one up, but okay. And then on the 9th of January, it's announced in the morning, breaking news, Alpine have signed a new reserve driver. Jack Doohan's like, oh God, here we go. And it's Ryo Hirakawa.
yeah, no small caliber driver there either.
Who is, I think he's 30 years old. He has no F1 experience, but despite he's done very well in endurance racing, don't get me wrong, but probably not a threat. And Jack Doohan can breathe a sigh of relief, like, phew, that's 2 reserve drivers in. And then later in the same goddamn day, they announced Colapinto. It's like, we've got 3 reserve drivers. We've got more reserve drivers than we have in any other department in this whole company. Poor Jack Doohan. So yeah, he's not a fool. Like, he understands that, of course, all teams are going to look to bolster their ranks and to ensure that they're future-proofing all of their lineups. We know, of course, last season there were just 2 lineups that are the same going into this season. So even if you think Gasly's locked for a few years, things can change very quickly in the world of F1. So it is understandable. But it's like, if you look at it from Colapinto's perspective and why he's signing, it's like, well, there's no like increase in job. Like, he's going from reserve driver to reserve driver. So that's not the reason. It's not current performance, because despite Alpine beating Williams in the championship last year, they were battling for most of the year. So that's not really the reason. If it was going from Sauber reserve driver to McLaren reserve driver, that might be a bit different, because if you get the opportunity in the car, you've actually got an opportunity to do something with it. Williams to Alpine's a pretty sideways move. It's not based on historic success, because Alpine don't have any of it. So you really narrow it down. Okay, what is he actually, why would he move? And you are left with the only reason of, he's been told or promised something that makes him think he's going to have a better chance of getting in the car than what he has at Williams. So I absolutely think Doohan needs to go in with a mentality of, I can prove everyone wrong and give Alpine a headache on what to do. I feel bad for him though, because he is going to have to almost from the off go in with I need to impress now. And that could lead to him overdriving the car. Like, I know Abu Dhabi wasn't great. Like, he didn't score points. It wasn't a great race, but equally with so many other things happening around him, we had incidents with Verstappen and Piastri and Bottas had a couple. Like, Doohan did what exactly he needed to do in Abu Dhabi. He completed a full race. And that's probably what he could use with these first few races of the 2025 season. And this decision might cause him to rethink that, which could be detrimental. What
do you think are the detrimental effects on Williams who have let a driver go? Because that's a loss for them.
It is. I think there is a question mark on what conditions, like, is he 100% Alpine? Is there any way they could bring him back? There is a question there. But there's also, like, Williams were going to struggle if another team were willing to put up the cash and give him a potentially better opportunity. Sainz and Albon are signed for longer than the end of this season. It was going to be tricky to keep him if there was significant interest from another team. So I'm not sure Williams could have done a huge amount. But hey, I mean, they gave a rookie a chance for half a season and they've probably got a boatload of cash for him. It's not bad.
Just on Williams' side note, and I get why, but if you look at their social media, they just have one driver at the moment. There's only Alex
Albon does not exist.
He's not there anymore. It's just Carlos Sainz's team.
I saw a video of them putting the 55 on the car, and it was like, a work of art was the caption. I saw a comment from some little old man who was like, don't forget the 23. And I was just like,
a tiny 23.
A tiny one.
Anyway,
do you reckon Albon's just got one engineer left and everyone else is on Sainz's car?
Yeah. All of them are taking Duolingo Spanish lessons over the summer.
Brutal. Right, let's take our first break on this episode. On the other side, we're giving our thoughts on the Belgian Grand Prix contract extension. Welcome back, everyone. Before we get into the Belgian Grand Prix, we are, of course, just a couple of weeks removed from Christmas and New Year. And I have to say, I've been doing a bit of tidying around the house, and I found 5 stars.
Oh.
Harry, I'm looking for places around the house to put these 5 stars, and they just won't go anywhere.
I hate it every time.
What can I do?
Honestly, that is quite the conundrum. I'm often finding 5 stars just lying around, and you've run out of storage space. You don't know where to put them.
Exactly. Yeah.
Put them on a review. That's right, folks. We love 5-star reviews here at Late Breaking. We love them more than any other podcast loves them, actually, and that is scientific fact. Yep. Yeah. Fact, as George Russell, would say. Folks, the off season is quiet for everyone involved. January, before we start recording, we were just saying how much we love January. But yeah, 5-star reviews will really, really help us. They genuinely do. I know we say this every time, but they genuinely do help us grow. Give us a bit more visibility so that, we can ruin other people's lives with this podcast. Enhance other people's lives with this podcast. So please leave us a lovely review if you're enjoying what you're hearing. And as we always say, you can write what you like as long as there's 5 stars associated with it. And if you don't want to leave a review because you hate us, just walk away. Just walk away. Don't say anything. Just be like, do you know what? Take my headphones up. Not enjoying this, which I understand. Just walk away. But the 5 stars are very important. You can write anything you want. The code word for this time is Flavio Brizzatore.
Nice. Love that.
With 5 stars.
Thank you for helping me to declutter my house. I really appreciate that, Harry.
You're welcome at any time.
Oh, God.
Should we move on? Formula One has agreed a new deal with the Belgian Grand Prix, which will keep the race on the schedule until 2031. However, the race will only take place every other year after 2027. So we can expect to see F1 at Spa in 2025, 26, 27, 2029, and then 2031. A statement issued by Formula One gave no explanation as to why there would not be a race in 28 and 30, although the idea of rotating certain races has been spoken about for a while. Stefano Domenicali had the following to say: Spa is rightly lauded by drivers and fans alike as one of the finest racetracks in the world, and is played host to some incredible moments over its many seasons in F1. Sam, your reaction? We'll get to the whole rotating element of this in a moment, but your reaction to at least it being on the calendar, because that in itself wasn't a guarantee.
Yeah, I think this is a real positive, real success for Formula One, for fans, for drivers. It is a much loved track, although I do think the racing in the last few years around Spa hasn't been as top quality as we've once seen. It does seem to deliver pretty solid Grand Prix racing most of the time. The weather often throws up some predicaments that sometimes go too far, and you'll remember one of the worst Grand Prix we had in a very long time was only a couple of years ago, where essentially we sat behind a safety car for 3 hours and Pierre Gasly at one point could smell sausages cooking. Entertainment for all, a family fun.
Speaking of jokes that have never died on this podcast.
Yeah,
they still run every single week. But generally, Spa delivers pretty solid Grand Prix racing. You've got so many famous corners throughout history there. You know, classic Blanchimont, Eau Rouge, Radillon, Pouillon. There's so many famous corners there, and the list goes on about how historic and how prestigious this racetrack is. I would say it is pretty much the step down from the likes of your Monzas, your Silverstones, your Interlagos, your Suzukas. Then Spa typically comes next. So when we're in a world of so many city tracks, coming through to the calendar, and we're almost being taken over by very new, not purpose-built racetracks, it's good that something with a bit of history is going to stick around for a while. Spa famously doesn't really have the cash to keep itself on the calendar. It's struggled to pay for its place. But it's good that we're finding a way to make sure that tracks like this do get to stay. And if that means we get to see new other brilliant racetracks at the same time that it can pair up with, or we get a increased longevity of other tracks that already exist, for example, if it were to rotate with the likes of Catalonia, which might be at risk with Madrid coming in place, then I am all for it. I'm all for this being the case. So really pleased that Spa stays. Really glad that we're going to get it at least semi-regularly. I just hope it doesn't fall foul of the treatment that the likes of Hockenheim and the Nürburgring got when we tried to do some alteration there, some rotation a couple of years ago, where we ended up losing both, which is a shame because both are phenomenal racetracks. So really pleased that we found a way to keep it on here for at least the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, I'm happy it's sticking around. We'll get to the way in which it's sticking around shortly, but I'm happy it is sticking around because even though my opinion on Spa, I've always thought my opinion of Spa is maybe marginally lower than the average F1 fan. And I do mean marginally. Like I think it's a very good track, but like you, Sam, I don't quite put it in the absolute elite. If you look back at the last, let's say 10, 15 years, it's delivered its fair share of good and bad races. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good. But I've always said as well, I'm not particularly tied to I don't know, just because a track has been on the calendar for a long time, that means it has this God-given right to stay on the calendar. My view on Monaco should attest to that. But overall, I am in favor of it staying because of what it brings. It brings character, it brings excitement. There is a noticeable difference between the sectors. You have got teams that will set up slightly differently for a weekend. You do have the prospect of weather, as already mentioned. The elevation changes are maybe some of the best on the F1 calendar too. So overall, very happy this is sticking around. Harry?
Yeah, I agree. Spa should be on the F1 calendar, full stop, in my view. And I am pleased it is staying because, like we said, there has been risks of it not staying. It had like a 1-year extension, didn't it, previously was that for this year? I think.
Yeah.
So obviously to keep on the calendar, but obviously that was clear. The negotiations were around keeping it. The negotiations around keeping it for longer were clearly complicated ones because, as we hear here, we haven't got it every year for the next 5 years. So yeah, I'm glad it is sticking around because I do, it's one of my favorites. It's it doesn't always deliver a banger, but as you say, Sam, generally it does. And like you said, Bennett, you do get quite a lot of variation in terms of setups on cars. We have the weather that comes into play. it still delivers an interesting F1 weekend, even if not all the time delivers a classic, but a lot of the time it does. So I'm glad it's staying. It should be on the calendar.
Sam, we've heard rotational races, particularly with European Grand Prix. We've heard it spoken about for a little while now, and I think Spa was towards the top of the list of circuits we expect to be in line for that. And here we are with 2 future years where we won't get Spa on the calendar. What are your thoughts on it rotating?
If it means we keep it in some respects, I am very pleased that it's been added as part of this rotational idea. I still think we should have a core element of the calendar that always stays the same. So you get those racetracks that always deliver fantastic racing. And I've mentioned a few of them already in Silverstone, Monza, Interlagos. I think these tracks deserve to always be around. And Spa, in my mind, was one of those. For me, it does deserve to be there on a yearly basis. But if financials are a reason why it can't maintain its position and it's at risk of being essentially having its place bought by outside influence, then at least we get to see it every other year. But I don't want rotational calendars to end up being an excuse for slowly fading out calendars without almost the shock element of just not going back there anymore. Equally, there is a positive. We may see new racetracks. There has been many times a conversation that we might go to South Africa, for example, in its positional change, where that might be a brand new country, new continent for us, which would be fantastic. We might get to see other classic European circuits make a reappearance, which had so much success when we had the COVID period. Turkey, of course, made its comeback and was fantastic. We also went to Portugal, which had a really, really good resurgence in Formula One as well. So there are positives to this, and I hope that Formula One are doing this to exploit those positives for both fan, driver, and team, and not because they go, we don't get enough cash, but we don't want to upset everyone, so we're just going to fade it out real slow. And then come 2031, when that other track, whatever it is, takes that place, we hear a new deal come alive of 10 years, that track's got that position now. Bye-bye, Spa. You didn't have it anyway, so you don't miss it as much. I hope that's not the case.
How are your thoughts on it rotating?
I mean, Ben, you've mentioned the rotation idea a couple of times, maybe over the past few years.
I don't know. Maybe I did.
Maybe it's quite a new one, I think.
Yeah, fairly new suggestion. Look, as I said, it was clear that the negotiations around renewing Spa were complicated. And obviously financial reasons for Spa. So if rotation is the way that this means we can still have Spa, then great. I'm glad that is the case. I'm with you, Sam. I hope we don't end up with a Hockenheim Nürburgring style. That's a bit different because they were rotating between those two just for the German GP. But I hope we don't end up with something there where, the Nürburgring slipped off the calendar and then Hockenheim slipped off after that, and then now we have no German GP, which is ridiculous. So I hope we don't end up with that sort of thing. Also, fine to rotate races, but we can't have 10 years of the Crypto.com Miami GP straight and not have...
I'm afraid we can, according to his contract.
No, I know, but it just doesn't, because I'm sorry, Miami sucks. Not the place. The track sucks. All right.
If you'd like to invite us to the racetrack, I'd like to go.
But we'd love to go. But it does. I mean, it doesn't deliver. The one in 2024 was good because we had that, was okay because we had that safety car. I wouldn't say good. Obviously the interest around Norris's first win, but generally it has not delivered a good race there. So we can have 10 years straight of that. We can have 10 years straight of a track we've never been to before with the Madrid GP. That could be terrible. But Spa, a place like Spa, and I know there's, I get your point, Ben, around you can't just sign somewhere because of its historical significance. But Spa is more than just the historical significance because it delivers good racing as well. It doesn't sit well with me that we can't have that. They can't work out a deal for that versus Miami. I don't know it's because cash is king, but it doesn't sit well. I don't think it looks good for F1 either, to be honest. So I'm glad it's staying. And if rotational calendars are the way to do that, then so be it. But I still don't like it.
Yeah, I think I'm unhappy but not mad, and the reason I'm not mad is because there's just such a lack of surprise. This has been coming for so long that it's like, now it's here, it's like, yeah, okay, this was always going to happen. And my annoyance is kind of the same as you, Harry, where I am fundamentally in favor of rotating Grand Prix, and I'm even okay with this one being rotated. The thing is, I know that it's annoying whilst we go to so many soulless tracks that Spa is going to be the first to be rotated. You use Miami, that was probably the example I was going to use as well, but we look at other tracks like Qatar with its one overtaking place, and Abu Dhabi with its one overtaking place. Jeddah, was there a move that not made into turn one last year? And I think it hasn't helped because we have so many night races now. I know this is a comment I've made before on the podcast, but when Singapore was the first night race back in 2008, like, it was special. Like, it was something that we hadn't already got on the calendar. Now we've got so many night races that you could probably have a corner of, let's say, Las Vegas and Jeddah, and you probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference. Like, there's just not, to use a word the kids love, there isn't an aura to some of these places, and that Spa does. So I am in favor of these rotating Grand Prix, but we just know that actually those that are going to be rotated are going to be some of those favorite tracks on the calendar. Like, you look at 17 of the 24 tracks on next year's or this year's calendar have got a deal until at least 2030. They're not going to be rotated. Like, we've got Jeddah until 2030 and Miami until 2031. Madrid until 2035 when we haven't had a race there yet. It just feels like some of these should also be in line for rotation and not just the likes of Spa.
Does Vegas have a number on its contract, or is it just
forever?
Forever.
I think it's forever.
Vegas's contract technically is up at the end of this year, but it's a bit confusing because I think there might be a distinction between the contract it has with F1 and the contract it has with the city, possibly. So I think the expectation is that it will be there for another decade, but the official contract is up at the end of this year.
Sell your soul to Sing City.
Is this a warning for some other tracks, Sam? I tend to think that Imola, Zandvoort, and Barcelona, all of their deals are up either this year or next year. Those three plus Spa, I feel like they'll partner up and it'll be 2 rotating and 2 rotating. What do you think?
You've read my mind. Those are the 4 for me that feel like they're going to get thrown into a basket together. We'll get some strange concoction of here, there, and everywhere between the 4. Again, I think there is a risk that one might end up almost buying the place of the other. So we end up down to 3. This is the risk with the rotational calendars when the cash is not as free flowing as you get in somewhere like a Miami or in the Middle East, where they seem to have these buckets of money that they could just put themselves wherever they want to. Like, hey, cash is king, and if you've got it, spend it. But these classic European tracks, which for the most part do deliver very, very good racing, have so much passion and such a large fan base around them, it does mean that we are at severe risk of losing them. So those 4, I think, are the immediate candidates where we could see them disappear. I actually think those spots might end up being replaced by other tracks in the Americas or more in the Middle East. And we do need to make sure that Formula One is not a Eurocentric sport. It is, I know, classically very Eurocentric, and we do get a lot of positives by simply being born in Europe and being a Formula One fan. You get a lot of benefits, a lot of perks. We get to watch most races at the right time. Most of the teams, apart from one currently, are all based on this continent. It really is a luxury that we have. So we do need to make sure that Formula One as a fandom is spread far and wide. But it is also a shame that what has made Formula One so initially successful in these passionate, entertainment-filled venues that are purpose-built for this sport might end up going awry. They might end up going amiss because they simply don't have the extra tens of millions on top of their bank budget to chuck it into Formula One's pockets and go, yeah, we'll have another decade. Thank you very much. So I do think that those are the 4 obvious ones. I think there's a risk that a few of those could drop off in the next 5 or 6 years as it is.
Harry, what are your thoughts on how the other tracks might feature into rotating?
Yeah, I think you're right to single those out. There was not that long ago, there was a story about Zandvoort just dropping off the end of 26 anyway, so maybe that's the way it's going. Although that does baffle me slightly because as long as Max Verstappen's in the sport, you've got perhaps the most profitable GP in the world there, bar Silverstone. But
you think it stays if he leaves, though? Like, you think the moment he retires, if they sign to a 10-year deal and he goes in too?
But they won't sign a 10-year deal. I'm sure everyone would do that. I think that's what happens. But whilst he's around, why would they even think about dropping off? Anyway, so Zandvoort may or not be there at all. But yeah, I can see that. I can see a Zandvoort Spa, that being the Spa rotation between those two, because it's, you know, similar times of the year generally, which would be a shame because Zandvoort doesn't tend to deliver a very good race, whereas Spa does.
Same with Imola.
Yeah, Imola and Barcelona. I mean, Barcelona writing slightly on the wall already because of the Madrid GP, which they will coexist for the first year, right?
Correct.
And then after that, we won't know what happens. But
exactly.
You know, you have to suggest that it will become the Spanish GP elsewhere, which Ben will, you know, be protesting about.
I cry myself to sleep every night.
See, it's shaped like turn one.
But yeah, I think those are the ones I do worry for other ones like Monza, because
don't be silly, don't utter the words.
But it's a similar situation. I know they're a little bit more safe, aren't they? Because they've already re-signed, but. You know, and as we get towards that time, I could see them.
I think Ferrari would absolutely declare war on Formula One if they got rid of Monza.
I know, but F1,
I don't care.
They don't care. But you know, who knows? We could see. But yeah, it is a shame. Like you said, Ben, the ones that are going to rotate are the traditionally more classic tracks. It's not going to rotate with a Miami. I mean, Jesus, if it did, I don't know if that's better or worse. Imagine one year you get Spa, the next year you get Miami. I know that wouldn't work with temperatures and stuff, but good God, that'd be hell. I'd tune out every other year. I'm not watching this one. It's the Belgian GP from Miami. Perfect.
Sure.
There is a risk, though, with this, though, that one year could be a fantastic calendar where every race is a banger. And if they've got the rotation wrong, we could end up having a year where it's all of these dull, soulless Grand Prix in a line. Yeah.
Well, we'll see. I'm sure there'll be plenty more news as some of these other contract extensions are due up this year and next year. We're going to take our second break on this episode. On the other side, we're going to give our thoughts on the shuffling that Aston Martin has done amongst its senior team. Welcome back, everyone. Andy Cowell, the former Mercedes engine chief who joined Aston Martin last July, has been named CEO and team principal of the team. Mike Krack, team principal since 2022, will remain with the team, but in the role of, oh God, Harry, what's the role?
I've read this somewhere. It's chief trackside officer.
Close. It's chief trackside officer.
No, trackside.
Okay. Aston Martin explained the change was done for clarity of leadership and as part of a shift to a flatter structure. Under its new arrangement, Aston Martin has grouped its aerodynamics, engineering and performance division separately, each of which will report to Cal. Enrico Cardile, hired from Ferrari last year, will serve as chief technical officer at the team's factory. Cal said these organizational changes are a natural evolution of the multi-year plans that we have scheduled to make, and I'm incredibly excited about the future. Sam, do you understand the moves that have been made here? Is it the right time to make these moves?
Yeah, I understand them, but Mike Crack's like an absolute stinker, isn't he? This is a
Come on now. You can't be mad at me for Crackside officer, then drop that one.
Oh, he's dropped that one, that's for sure, because it stinks. The timing on this, for him personally, not good at all. This is essentially like the birth of a star we're witnessing right now. We're about to enter that with so much energy, so much power, so much money is about to flow through Aston Martin. He had it in his hands. He was at the helm. But the last 2 seasons have been fueled with uncertainty, no clarity on where they're going, so confused on development. They've stagnated massively. You look at that, the positional change hasn't happened. Of course, they've finished 5th 2 years in a row, but the points change and the disparity between themselves and the top 4 teams has become astronomical. Percentage-wise, they're far closer to Haas, Alpine, Williams behind them than they were the year before, where they were much closer with Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari, even Red Bull. So It's not been a good couple of years from Mike Krack, and I do understand entirely. I can't look at Harry when I talk about this segment. I need to block out Park's screen. Grimaces like a child. So to me, it's been a bit of a tricky decision because I think he's been working with a hand tied behind his back where they've been planning so much for 2026. But at the same time, you've got to have someone at the helm who is able to harness so much of this potential, so much brilliance that's coming in at once. And we've seen just how brilliant a job Mr. Cal did at Mercedes. He was the mind behind that brilliant Mercedes engine that powered them to such success in the early hybrid era. If he's able to rationalize all of these brilliant minds with Cardile, who has done a fantastic job at Ferrari as well, and they appear to have taken a McLaren approach in their 3 pillars with a flat aspect ratio on how they want to lead that team forward, then it might actually give them some understanding, some direction, some strategy based on how the team is going to work together to produce brilliance and use Newey, use the new wind tunnel, use the investment to actually be a competitive unit going into 2026. If they didn't do it now, I fear it would be too late and they would have missed the jump and they would have squandered their chances going into 26.
Harry, did you have any thoughts on Mike Krack being out?
Oh, no one's ever going to buy us or sponsor us or do anything.
No one's ever going to invest.
We're almost 30.
I'm 30 in a month and a half.
This is the right call. I am aligned with you, Sam. This now is the time, because they've got so many. A good analogy from you, actually, Sam. I enjoyed the Star one. It's the start of a big time for Aston Martin. Get your ducks in a row now, not after the fact. Obviously, there's Adrian Newey on board, but lining all these people up and getting them into the right roles that they need to be in now is the right call. So I don't know whether people would view this as a slight demotion for Mike Krack, but I don't personally see it as an indictment on his time with Aston so far. I think it's being sensible and logical about this and seeing where people's strengths lie and go, look, you do that, you're good at this, do this, you're good at this, you do this, etc., etc. And it's, as you said, Sam, it's the sort of McLaren approach with, Andrea Stella being team principal, but then you've also got Zach Brown. There's other people like that. F1 teams are so vast and complicated these days. Gone are the days where you'd have one person in charge. It's quite rare. Your Toto Wolffs and your Christian Horners are a dying breed almost of team principals because there just doesn't exist like that anymore.
Can we quickly mention how Freddie Vass is now the 3rd most experienced team principal on the grid?
At his current team.
Yes.
Great stuff. Oh, yeah, because it was Mike Krack, but he's obviously now lost out on that. That's wild. Freddie Vass joined that 2 years ago.
December 2022.
Oh, dear. Christian Horner and Toto Wolff are just like, they wonder they bicker so much because they just got no one else to bicker with.
Just 80% of the team principals on the grid have not been with their current team as team principal when someone other than Max Verstappen has led the championship.
Yeah, that is insane.
That's wild.
That is wild.
But yeah, that it is. I think it is a dying breed. Sorry, I'll conclude Freddie Vass in that because he is very much, head of the Ferrari team at the moment. But it does. Teams are opting not to work that way, and I think this is a sensible move for Aston Martin with so much investment that's gone in to the wind tunnel, to the big factory. They're going to be working with Honda come 2026. So having someone like Andy Cowell, as you said, Sam, who's been so instrumental in the Mercedes success and their engine, I think that's a big sensible move for them to make. So I don't view this as a massive, as I say, as a massive indictment on Mike Krack. I think it's more just about thank you for your services. We're gonna shuffle things about here, but this is for the good of the team. So if he was fired, then obviously yes, you'd say that's a bit different. But I think this is a slightly different situation.
Yeah, I agree with you both. I think the timing makes a lot of sense, and we've been questioning for a while whether they would make any bigger changes heading towards 2026 and making sure that they didn't leave things too late, similar to what Audi did. Obviously, Audi made big change with Andreas Seidel leaving and Jonathan Wheatley and Bonotto joining, but they made sure to do that. I can't remember, August, wasn't it? About 18 months or so out from the start of the 2026 season. Similar to this, they give themselves a full year of this revamped structure, which I think makes a lot of sense. I also completely understand them not making a bit of a rash decision in the middle of 2024. I don't think that would have made a lot of sense. Instead, Andy Cowler's had an opportunity to take 3 months of reviewing the team in full and making sure that he's conducting a review that comes to the right outcome. There is quite a funny part of it where Andy Cowler's done a 3-month review and his results are, I should probably just do things. I should probably lead.
Look at me.
I have conducted my research and my conclusion is I'm the man for the job. I think when it comes to Mike Krack, like he was in
that was you that time, Sam. I didn't do anything.
Oh, I'm sorry. It just bangs when it comes to Mike Krack. I'm so glad we're not going to have to say his name as much anymore. I don't wish any negatives on the guy, but I'm so glad it's not going to come up as often.
He's had success at BMW, Porsche, and I think him sticking around at the team is the right call. Even if it is in a slightly different position and he's now reporting to Andy Cow being the team principal. He has been in this weird transitional phase of like the investment has been made, but he has not been able to take advantage of any of it. So I do have sympathy for him and I'm glad he's sticking around. And this whole pillars approach, as we've kind of mentioned before, McLaren have adopted it and hey, that's worked out pretty well for them. So I understand they're making that call. Is it all going to work, Sam, with Andy Cowell at the helm?
He's a very sensible pair of hands. We've seen that he's delivered success, as we're mentioning in this conversation. I do think we're in a bit of a tricky place when it comes to these experienced heads in Formula One. It's, as you've mentioned already, so many team bosses have shifted around in the last couple of years alone, that it does start to feel like these musical chairs, you start to run out of people who have really been a part of something completely successful. Of course, Wheatley with Audi is going to be a big change that maybe could have been taken advantage of, but that's where we're getting to, where you don't get the likes of Toto Wolff or Christian Horner. Freddie Vass was an absolute steal for Ferrari, I think, but he's already been a part of that kind of Ferrari family for a long time anyway. Cowell is a good shout. Cowell is someone who understands how an organization works, that it's efficient, gets results done, and understands what good looks like, understands what success looks like. So I think it's slim pickings a little bit. So I think they've done a good job at picking up someone who is so well versed in what a leading team needs to be. So yeah, I think whilst it's a bit of a risk, any move in Formula One realistically is a bit of a risk, and this one feels like it's been well put together.
Harry, we've had in the past experienced person who has experience going back to the 1990s, who is an expert in engines as team principal. His name is Bonotto. It didn't work very well. How can they ensure that this isn't that?
It's a valid comparison to make. Look, it's hard. Bonotto was up against. I know Andy Cowell wasn't his team principal.
His own team.
Yeah, Bonotto had some other issues with just being in charge of Ferrari, but Andy Cowell brings world championship winning experience. I'm not saying Bonotto didn't, but Bonotto was winning championships in the noughties, not the late teens or early 20s. So it's slightly different. He's got more recent experience of what winning feels like. So he has to be allowed to use that experience. I guess you could say with these pillared approaches, are there too many cooks? But I think they are very much, as they've set out here, they're very much in their own roles. And it's about, they've got so many names now, Aston Martin, like, I was just going to say household, but they're obviously not household, but you know what I mean? But in the world of F1, household names, in terms of engineering and expertise, that they've got to harness. They've got a lot of big brains wandering around Silverstone.
Honestly, the combination of Adrian Newey and Andy Cowell, just those two,
it's pretty good.
The potential of that as a duo is bigger than the potential of any other team.
Yeah. I mean,
you have got... Yeah, sorry, go on.
But yeah, like you're right. The potential of that Honda coming in, and the rest of the names there, they still have Fernando Alonso in the car. It's all the stars are aligning. They just need to make sure they execute it, and this is what I think Andy Cowell's got to be allowed to try and organize and do. So yeah, it remains to be seen, but you'd find it hard to see how this can go wrong for them. I know it can.
A monumental implosion.
But you'd look at it and go, how the recipe is here for the tastiest cake in the world. If it tastes like crap, they've done something seriously wrong.
They fear one man, Rob Marshall.
Wow, everyone has to fear Rob Marshall.
Yeah, I mean,
he's scaffolding work has dried up and he's back to F1.
He's chief baker and he's making all the good cakes.
I bet he builds them up so well, Rob Marshall. He knows how to build a structure.
Adrian Newey and Andy Cowell, just thinking about this, they pretty much hold exclusively F1 success going back to 2010.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That is one long continuous era of even Newey or Cowell dominating in one way or another.
So if you put Hamilton and Verstappen in that team, almost every title for the last 20 years almost is within that team.
Yikes. Should we move on to some more successful individuals, namely Mohammed Ben Sulayem?
Oh.
How did you write him on the schedule, Ben?
Sorry, let me rephrase. Mohammed Ben Sillyman.
Oh, good one.
Yeah. The FIA president, of course, Mohammed Ben Sulayem, has delivered an attack on the media. Ben Sulayem has repeated claims that he feels he has been unfairly criticised by the media. He said, 3 years of critics against me. Do I care? Was I elected to listen to the media? No. I like the good media, the positive media, and maybe I made a mistake and you can come and criticise me in an objective way. When asked about being treated unfairly, he said, unfair. But the world is unfair. Saudi Arabia has reinvested a lot.
Bring them into it for no reason. Why? Pull that out of the bag. Is he able to make sentences based on words he's pulling out of a bag somewhere?
I thought I'd written it down wrong. And no, that's it. You look at some of the British media and they go against Saudi Arabia or me. But one thing I would say, go on and see the British Grand Prix. Is it the British Grand Prix? No, it is the Qatar Airways British Grand Prix.
That's not Saudi Arabia.
Please, you remove the budget, you remove the money.
Sam, what a line.
My initial question to you, Sam, was going to be, do you agree or disagree? But I'm going to change my question. Can you tell me what he means?
I was going to say, if you ask me, do I agree? The first words out of my mouth are going to be, with what? What is he saying? Can we go back and revisit the Shut Up Award for the LBs? Because he's earned it already.
Hey, two-time champ coming
already done. Done.
No one else is turning up for the fight. That man is undefeated. It's so contradictory. It's so up and down. Do I choose to listen to them? Was I employed to listen to the media? No, but you very clearly do, because you do not stop talking about the media you get. Constantly, constant natter, yappa.
Shanice, yeah, shut it, please.
Shut your mouth. You are moving like a rat. Okay, I'm sick of hearing your name in the news. I'm sick of hearing your name in the press. British media are famous for being ruthless. They are horrible in terms of what they will go to, the lengths they'll go to get a story. Famously, in the 90s and the noughties, standing outside people's houses, taking photos through windows, right? They will go above and beyond for a story. We are one tiny nation in the whole globe, and yet you seem to focus all of your press releases on this one media outlet. Just do your job well, and then you will get good media, positive media. You'll get constructive criticism, but you seem to not only not do your job, you seem to do your job badly, and then you seem to talk about other people instead of doing your job constantly. And then for some reason, you brought up Saudi Arabia into this, which has got no relevance at all.
It has reinvested a lot.
Yeah, great. Brilliant. Well done to Saudi Arabia. Not relevant. And then you seem to think that Saudi Arabia and Qatar are the same nation. Again, not that. Also, if Qatar stopped being the sponsor of the British Grand Prix, there would be another sponsor.
Find another one, mate.
Come along.
Find another one.
They'd be queuing
do
up.
it.
Yeah, late breaking Silverstone Grand Prix. We're right here.
Can offer no money, but we'll do it.
We'll do a
We can offer
comedy
vibes.
bit at the start of the season. It will be bad, but we'll try. Nonetheless, if every Middle Eastern company pulled out of backing the British Grand Prix, I can assure you that someone with a lot of money will turn around and go, here's a check, put my name on the start of it, because it is the most fantastic spectacle of Formula One. So wind your neck in, stop being a silly man, and just do your bloody job for once.
It used to be called the Foster's British Grand Prix. Anyone will sponsor it. Doesn't matter.
And we'll take anyone.
Yeah. We're British. We don't care.
Don't care.
Harry, direct quote from you. Please, can we talk about this on Sunday's ep? I'm going to assume you have some thoughts on this.
I couldn't believe. So I saw this came up in a tweet. I think it was Autosport that reported it, and it said Mohammed Ben Sulayem has said a cryptic
Yes, it was cryptic.
message, and I was like, oh, I wonder what he said. And when nothing could have prepared me for what this quote was. Okay, as you said, Sam, do I care? No. Well, you clearly do, my guy. You clearly do, because you're talking to the media now saying how you don't care. It's like when you're a child and you try to pretend you're not tired or grumpy. You're like, I'm not tired. I'm not. Yes, you are, Ben. You're child. You're grumpy. You need to go to bed. That alone was ridiculous. I like the good media is, basically autocratic. Well, why can we only have, what do you mean by good media? The ones that are nice to you? That's not how this works. If you want them to be nice to you, don't do stupid things. Don't say stupid things. For goodness sake. This also, and again, I don't know whether we're missing context here. This is from the Dakar rally he's being spoken to here. Where is the context for this? He's clearly just got...
I don't think there is any.
He's just annoyed over the Christmas break, and he's like, I really need to say something. Because no one's provoked him to say this. As you said, wind your neck in, Sam. Well, why are you coming out and slating the media for no reason here? You're at the Dakar rally represented. You are the FIA president. Just shut it. The world is unfair. Yes, the world is unfair. Saudi Arabia has reinvested a lot. I cannot for the life of me understand what he means here. He can't keep up his own thought process. He wanted to make 2 points. Media sucks, and I like Saudi Arabia. I need to get this into one quotable sentence for them to write down. That alone is bizarre, and I don't know what he's trying to say here. He clearly doesn't like the British media. Is the idea?
What gave that away?
Yeah.
Do you think he'll come on the show?
What, Ben?
I don't think I'd have him on the show.
No, we wouldn't know what he's saying. It'd be nonsense.
It's bad.
You're bad. Yeah, I don't. Whether he likes the Saudi Arabian media more, maybe is what his point is here, but I'm unsure. And the budget thing about the British Grand Prix is just absolute nonsense. As you said, Sam, they'll find another sponsor if Qatar was removed. They've had plenty over the years. I don't really know what his point is. And the final concluding line, what do you mean? You remove the budget, you remove the money.
That is quite literally
That's how that works. Is. What do you mean by this?
You remove the sentence, you remove the words. Yeah?
But this is the quote. Please, you remove the budget, you remove the money. Please what? What do you mean? What do you mean?
I think he's got a valid point here, because when you think about it, Saudi Arabia has reinvested a lot.
Oh, for God's sake.
Also reinvested. Would it not just be invested? Because what have they reinvested?
That's the bit of this you're picking on.
I'm picking on all of it because it's complete rubbish. It's all nonsense.
State of this quote.
Oh, goodness me.
Well, the good news is both of you have pretty much gone through 90% of my thoughts on this quote. But I'm going to say it anyway. It is difficult to agree or disagree with him, because that involves knowing what the hell he's talking about, and I don't. So the easiest way is to just break this down into individual quotes and hope they make more sense. And to be honest, they still don't. As you said, Harry, 3 years of critics against me. Do I care? Don't know, mate. Kind of sounds like you do. Like you come forward every month saying how you don't care what the media thinks.
To the media.
I think you do. I like the good media, the positive media. And you know what? I apologize. That's my bad, because I thought it was entrepreneurial to go after Susie Wolff and Toto Wolff for collusion based on an unverified article in an F1 magazine. Yes, that's once you start to reframe things, actually, you do start to become more positive about them. And the real kicker for me was, you look at some of the British media and they go against Saudi Arabia or me, go and see the British GP. It's the Qatar Airways British GP. Now, I have consulted with industry experts on this. I've done hours of extensive research, and I've concluded that Qatar Airways is actually based in the Qatar Airways Tower in Doha, which is in Qatar, not Saudi Arabia. So I'm not quite sure where he's getting that from. Also, yes, they're sponsoring 3 races this year, Qatar Airways. MSC Cruises is doing the same thing. Does that mean we should all be massively thanking Switzerland? We
should.
The irony of having a cruise line when you're in Switzerland as well, it's just ridiculous.
Our good friend Lucas would say yes.
True. With a ukulele, probably.
Shout out to Bill.
Lenovo, they're doing 2 races as a title sponsor this year from China.
Let's all get a laptop.
2 races are being done by Heineken.
Let's all have a
Netherlands. Beer. What's your point,
What do you mean?
I don't know. But I did have a rethink about all of that.
Ah, okay.
And
Take
actually,
perspective.
Some of it does make sense when you think about the fact that Saudi Arabia has reinvested quite a lot. God's sake.
Oh, God.
Unfair, but the world is unfair. Saudi Arabia has reinvested a lot. As a sentence.
That he answers his own question by going, why do I get all this negative media? It's unfair. Yep, the world's unfair. So you've just proven your own point. Get on with your day job, mate.
We are, as always, very interested to hear from you listeners, wherever on social media, on Discord, for all of our topics, but particularly that one, because if you disagree with our thoughts and agree with Mohammed Ben Sulayem, I'd like to know why. So
if you
please
can tell us what he means.
Yeah.
Also write in.
Get it on Google Translate.
Very helpful. Let's take our final break on this episode. On the other side, we've got F1 Higher and Lower. Welcome back, everyone. It's time for F1 Higher and Lower.
Is F1 higher? Is F1 lower? Is Sam faster? Is Harry slower? F1 higher? F1 lower? F1.
The first appearance of F1 Higher and Lower in 2025. 6 questions in front of me. The guys will take it in turns to guess the answer. It's always a numeric answer. If they get it right, which can be tricky with a lot of these, they get 2 points. If they get it wrong, the other person has the opportunity to say higher or lower than that guess. If they're right, they get a point. But if they're wrong, the person who guessed first gets the point. So, Harry, kick us off. What number would you like from 1 to 6?
Number 2, please.
Number 2. How many races has Oscar Piastri scored points in?
31.
It's not 31, which means Sam, higher or lower than 31?
Okay, he completed all 24 Grand Prix this year. He scored in a lot of those. I'm going to say it's higher.
It is higher, although 31 is not a bad guess at all. 36.
Damn.
Which means Sam is on the board. We go to Sam next. What number would you like?
1, please, Ben.
Number 1. How many laps has Lewis Hamilton led at the Hungarian Grand Prix? And this is a record, by the way, for any one driver at one circuit.
Quite a lot, then.
Higher.
Correct. I'll take the point. Okay, he's won there a lot of times. He's also led when he hasn't won. So this is going to be a guess from the deep, dark world. 907.
It is not 907. Shockingly, I mean, that I'd have thought you'd have got that spot on. Harry, higher or lower?
Lower.
It is lower, 487.
Oh, I thought it was like 10 times in a row. So like it's like 70 odd laps. That's where I did that math from.
It washed, didn't he, really?
10 times 70 is 900.
No, but like 700, and then he's led at other times as well, you know?
Yeah.
All right.
487. So we're at 1-1 and we're back to Harry.
Number 4.
What was the points difference between Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz as teammates?
Over what? Over
their Ferrari careers as teammates.
Overall 4 years?
Yes. Yeah, it was 4 years. Not that this will probably change your guess, but Saudi Arabia is not included as part of it.
That has changed all my calculations.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know what to say now. 47.
It is not 47. Higher or lower, Sam?
Higher.
It is higher. 112.5.
Quite a bit higher.
So a little bit higher, yeah.
That annoying half point based on the Belgian Grand Prix from 21.
I knew it would come back to bite me.
Yep. All right. 2-1, Sam, back to you.
6, please, Ben.
Number 6. How many Austrian Grand Prix have there been? And again, I don't know if this is going to affect anything. The Styrian Grand Prix is not the Austrian Grand Prix. It took place, obviously, at the Red Bull Ring. But
took place in a fantasy land called Styria. I assume we're counting all track variations of names other than Styria, then.
As long as it's called the Austrian Grand Prix.
I don't know now. I'm going to go with 32.
It is not 32, Harry, higher or lower?
Lower.
It is not lower. It is higher, which means Sam gets the point. A good guess, 32. 37 is the right answer.
Oh, Lord, sir.
Yeah, I was going down the A1 route, etc.
Which means we are at 3-1. And Harry, it's back to you. You need to get both of these right or one spot on potentially.
Number 6.
Every week.
How many Austrian Grand Prix?
Number 5.
What I just did.
Number 5. How many seasons? There's a chance you might get this spot on. We'll see. How many seasons has Kimi Räikkönen got a podium in?
Crikey.
Get the fingers out. Not relevant to the question.
Terrible catchphrase from Sam. How many's got podium in? Okay. I'm just counting on my fingers, folks. Sorry.
I told you, get the fingers out. New game show coming your way. If you've gone past 25, you've done too many.
14.
Sensational.
It is sensational. Spot on. 14.
Nicely done. Well done.
Did 19 seasons in F1, but 5 of them he didn't have a podium in, which were his first season back at Ferrari, and then 3 years at Alfa Romeo. So yeah, 14 is spot on. We're at 3-3. Sam,
well done.
Over to you.
I'll have number 3.
Oh, I don't have it. Hang on.
You literally knew it was the only one left.
I didn't.
To be fair.
3. Thank you.
For the win, how many races has Haas competed in?
Okay. Let me get the fingers out. Individual races.
Even for someone who was who grew up in Cornwall, you aren't going to have an answer.
Very good. I'm doing mental maths here, folks. Apologies for the radio silence. 176.
Being very, very harsh.
It's not right. Harry, higher or lower than 176?
I will go for... I don't think that's a bad guess, actually.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
I'll go for higher.
It's an epic comeback from 3-1 down to win 4-3.
Oh.
You were also right in saying it was a good guess. You are not far off at all. 190.
I'll say that.
Off.
A valiant loss. I don't mind.
Which means 4-3. Harry, that Kimi Räikkönen question helping you out there and taking the dub.
You know what? I got no issue with losing to a correct guess and a higher and lower. It's always a good one.
Cheers, Kimi.
Wow.
Well, that is going to do it for this episode. We're back midweek, of course. Sam, if you wouldn't mind getting us out of here.
Folks, thanks for listening. As Ben said, we will be back midweek. But if you want more content, then we do actually have a Patreon. The link's in the description below. We are really hoping that Saudi Arabia will decide to reinvest in the Patreon account to allow us to do this full time. It is the best way to help out the show. Everything's ad-free. You get 2 extra normal episodes. You get a beer we're breaking. You get a birthday shout-out on the top tier. You get a historic race review as well. Loads of stuff in there. So if you can afford it, we know times are trying for a lot of people, but if you can, we'd massively appreciate you taking a little look. Really proud of the content we make there. Discord, the link's in the description. Join a full, huge community, over 3,000 people chatting F1 every single day. You meet lots of people in your area. You'd be surprised how many people come from your part of the world. So get in there and have a look. Follow us on social media, Late Breaking F1. This is on YouTube. We are aiming for that 10K. I'm not going to give a year anymore, but it's by Silverstone. That's Late Breaking F1 as well. And we'll be back midweek. Thank you very much. In the meantime, I've been Samuel Sage.
I've been Ben Hocking.
And I've been Harry Eid.
And remember, keep breaking late.